This meeting is being recorded.
How's it going, guys? Long overdue. Actually going through some changes for the podcast, so apologies for the delay. My co-host Marco just decided that he was a little bit too busy, to each his own. So not sure exactly about the next directions of the pod, but for the meantime, just wanted to get some content out, and I thought a great fill-in and possibly co-host for the future would be my brother Kelvin, who has a big history with the game himself. So Kel, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself and your history and fandom of the game.
Okay. Hi guys, I'm Kelvin. Like Ethan mentioned, I'm his brother. We're talking about the NBA constantly, just about every day. I was a team manager in high school and then also in college, at Lemoyne College. Never played other than recreationally, but love the game, love watching it, love talking about it. So, figured might as well give this a shot and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, exactly. So sounds good. Yeah. So I mean, I had a bit of success at Lemoyne. You guys went far in the D2 tournament a couple of times there. So kind of just like, seeing the game at a higher level from the inside than, myself and even Marco and, really a lot of people. So, maybe be able to talk a little bit more like analytically and just like schematically versus just like the normal viewers. And I'm sure the audience, whoever's listening, would greatly benefit from hearing some of that. So yeah, pretty excited to have you on and, just kind of get the ball rolling with this again. So appreciate you coming on. And yeah, so it's been a while since we talked. It was mid-January and things were going on, but there's been a lot that's happened in that time. Not all of it, predictable for sure, but I would say some of the biggest news, we got to give it up. And, you being a LeBron guy, so let's talk a little bit about breaking the record, well-deserved. And, he, as much as the Lakers have struggled, continues to perform at a super high level. And that game against OKC, whatever, I think he needed 16 coming out of the half, and he got it in the third quarter, which was pretty special. So did you have any thoughts or, just generally about that?
I thought just, his whole mentality was kind of a lot different than what we normally see. Like he was in attack mode, looking for his own shot from the jump. And, he's always kind of been a guy, especially later in his career, he tries to get everybody else involved first. This was as shot hungry as I've seen him start a game, not even like being hot or like in a rhythm to start, just like starting, looking for his own shot right away. And then, he had the possession. I think he hit like 2 back-to-back threes within the first couple minutes of the third quarter. And I think that got it down to like 10 or 8 or something. And then, I don't know, you could just kind of sense that it was coming pretty soon after that.
Yeah, I think part of those last 10 were like a couple transition, Lakers actually got some stops, and he reaped the benefit of that. So it was just great to see, especially being East Coast guys, like with the primetime West schedule. I know a lot of people, my roommate, Zach, actually, as soon as he got it, he was like, all right, I'm going to bed. Like, I don't need to catch the end of this. So
and I was in that camp too.
Right. So it was cool to see it. It's just crazy to see, like in the past couple of years, back to back, we see Curry break the 3-point record, and now LeBron get the scoring record, both of which, were tremendous. But I'd just say that Kareem's was pretty much deemed like untouchable for the longest time, whereas the 3-point is just like the way the game has changed. It was sort of an inevitable event. And obviously Steph still has a lot in the tank. And, everyone is continuing to add to that record, but it'll be interesting to see, some of the young guys. I don't know, Trae Young comes to mind. I would say maybe if Dame were a little bit younger, but just these guys who really get them up in volume and knock them down at a high efficiency. It's like, who knows? Like, I would say it wouldn't be overly surprising if the 3-point was broken again. Whereas, yeah, I'd say maybe LeBron has 3 or 4 years left, and it's like he's continuing to add. I don't know. It never say never, but it's going to be hard, obviously, for anyone to touch that.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, I think the 3-point record, not to diminish what Steph's done at all, but if you look at even his first couple of years, like as
Yeah.
great a shooter as he was, like shooting 40% from the line, essentially, like within a percentage point or two from the moment he stepped in the league, and he still started his career shooting like 3.5, 4.5 a game on average.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy.
you look, and there are rookies coming in shooting like 7 or 8 immediately with way less percentage. So that's just that's a numbers game more than anything.
Calling out Jalen Green, I see.
I mean, any young guard, I feel like the 3-point is emphasized so much that they almost put guys in a position where they're like, we want you to shoot that shot regardless of if it's really to your strength or not.
Right, just because all the analytical,
Yeah.
Changes, and just seeing about like points per shot, stuff like that. So, I mean, it is what it is, but kudos to LeBron, honestly. It was a cool moment. I thought it was funny how he brought back out the headband for that game, just because it's, he left that in the past, but it was cool. And yeah, I think it's one of those other things where it's like the Lakers lost the game, so it's tough to be like overly celebratory. I don't know if you saw like AD like did not stand up and like celebrate LeBron, and then he was like asked about it and he was like, yeah, I was just like focused on the game. But I thought that was a major red flag like for their team, because I mean, AD is the young one. He's supposed to kind of be the one who's taking the shouldering of the load as LeBron like enters the twilight of his career, but he's always hurt. And then to see him not celebrate such a historic moment for, the guy who actively sought to get him to LA. Everything they gave up for that is its own discussion, but hey, they got a ring. Like, AD was not going to get a ring without LeBron. It's just crazy to me to see him not like be supportive like that. I don't know if reading too far into it, but it was definitely a headline.
I didn't notice that in the moment, but I certainly saw the headlines after the fact. I think first of all, it speaks to just how much of a microscope the Lakers are under on a day-to-day basis. Like,
Good point.
it seems like something as trivial as not standing up in a given moment can be a headline for them. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, there's so much that we as fans don't know behind closed doors.
No.
Who knows if it's really much of a big deal or not. But
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, the plan was for Davis to kind of take the responsibility during the regular season so that LeBron could be at his absolute peak for the postseason. And as you stated, that just has not happened in any way, shape, or form the last couple of years. So
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see, man. I saw this tweet that was like the Lakers are about to hang their third straight "nobody wants to see us in the playoffs" banner, and it's like, honestly, we'll see. We'll see if
I
they make
mean,
it. I am in the party that just as how good with as how excuse me, I'm fumbling my words, but how good LeBron's been, it's hard to ever count them out in a 7-game series. With that said, they've missed the playoffs last year. They're on track to miss the playoffs again this year, and they lost in 6 the last time they made it in the first round. So it's just it's wild. I will say the Lakers improved their roster at the trade deadline pretty substantially. So that kind of leads us into our next segment, talking about the trade deadline. But I guess briefly while we're on the Lakers, it's just funny how things come full circle and now they bring D'Lo back, with the whole fallout with the Swaggy P thing. And, he's a great player. And he's a lot better of a shooter than Westbrook and, Pat Bev and some of the guys that they had on the team. So, any thoughts you had regarding their moves?
I mean, you said it. They needed a guy that could shoot the three at the guard position and create his own shot for a three, and that's what D'Lo can do. I'm drawing a blank on who they played their first game with.
It might have
D'Lo
been
in the lineup.
Portland. I know Portland was one of the two. There was another one, kind of regardless to the point, but
Yeah, but he hit like back to back like pull up threes in the third quarter to kind of give them a little bit of breathing room, and that's just a guard coming down and hitting pull up threes back to back is something that's been few and far between for them. And I think it's kind of a perfect situation for him. He'll be the de facto point guard, but he won't have to generate like shots for other people and focus on that as much. He'll be, he was actually catching and shooting a lot in Minnesota. They had kind of transitioned Anthony Edwards into more of a creator role and just tried to grow his game that way. So I think he's a pretty seamless fit. Defensively, he's not great, and neither was Westbrook. So it'll be interesting to see how they try to plug those holes. But
right.
I think Jared Vanderbilt was actually maybe the most consequential player for them, just in terms of being able to win. Just in his ability to switch, guard multiple positions, and just be active.
Right, just like sort of 3-and-D guy. Yeah, it looked like actually the new look team without LeBron, but their first game was against Golden State. They got the win. Obviously, the Dubs are depleted, but yeah, it's tough to count them out because now they actually have a new roster. So it's like their record isn't a reflection of their current team. With that said, it's still a pretty big hole for them to jump out of.
Yeah, they're gonna have to.
Teams ahead of them, and then say they make the play-in, which they're 9-10, they're 2 to 2.5 games out of. That's not a guarantee. Like you have to win 2 games before you lose 1.
Exactly, and
so we'll see.
But forget about the play-in even for right now. They're gonna have to play, probably win 75% of their games to even give themselves a shot.
Right.
They've looked great, but I think they have 23 games left. Can they go 18-5 or 17-6 or something like that down the stretch to give themselves a shot? We'll see.
Which is, I saw LeBron said he was like, I'm not missing, another game. Like these are like 23 of the most important games of my career, which seems a bit astronomical of a statement, but he's
Yeah,
going to say some
I think he
outlandish
was
things.
referring to regular season, but
Yeah,
the quote certainly is eyebrow
right.
raising, especially when you're talking about someone that was in 8 straight finals at one point.
Yeah, it's a little polarizing, but yeah, whatever. But yeah, they improved their team. I was just happy that the Kyrie that they didn't get Kyrie for nothing, because when you looked at their assets, they really didn't have much. Like in my eyes, call me a
No,
hater. But to return a talent like Kyrie for the packages they could have offered, just in no world would have made sense other than teams helping the Lakers and helping LeBron, which seems to be a recurring theme. Even honestly, the D'Angelo and Vanderbilt trade, the assets that the Wolves got aren't really from the Lakers. I'm forgetting how many picks were involved, but their main get was Conley from Utah. So I wouldn't call, the picks, which, I wouldn't really call that. Like these players just find a way on the Lakers. It's just kind of ridiculous to me, but that's what happens when you play in a big market, I guess.
yeah, I mean, to your point, the cupboard is bare in Los Angeles in terms of assets for a trade. The cupboard had been bare for
Yeah.
quite some time now, so they really scraped the bottom of the barrel to get this, and it did better work because they don't have anything left to give. You can talk about the cap room they'll have from having Westbrook's contract gone but off the books for next season. And does a free agent want to go there? Maybe, but that seems to be a discussion for like the last 10 years or so. And
Right.
really not that many Mikey guys have wanted to go there. So
Yeah.
we'll
And I would
see.
say just last thing about the Lakers before we move on, because we're kind of talking too much about them. But the last thing just being, D'Lo, a guy who really has the ball in his hands a lot, he can be a spot up shooter, but it's just one of those things where it's like, when you have LeBron who really has the ball so much, it's like it's always just interesting to see how that fit's going to be. And LeBron didn't play any of these games with the new roster because he's nursing the injury, so we'll just have to see how that plays out. But
Yeah, I mean he's played the one, but yeah, to your
yeah,
point, they've had one rep of that. You know, obviously, guys are gonna play complementary roles for better or worse. That's what happens when you play with LeBron. And you know, uh, can they adjust to that? And can he maybe look at the talent they have and adjust to, being off the ball and kind of letting other guys, carry a little more of the load? We'll see.
yeah. Um, Agreed. So yeah, moving on to the other dominoes really coming out of Brooklyn. So man, this is a crazy league, and with player empowerment. I just was so shocked. Because the article that I read was that the trade request from Kyrie was more of a financial thing than anything, because he was, the Nets went on a crazy hot streak with him and KD together. I think they won like 20 out of 22 or something. KD goes down. The Nets definitely fell off a little, but Kyrie was keeping them afloat, and he was putting up dumb numbers. And in that moment, he's like, my value's at an all-time high because I'm keeping this team good without KD. The rest of their roster has some holes in it, as residually from the Harden to Ben Simmons trade. And then he was just like, if I can't get my max value, if I can't get a contract now, I'm going to see my way out. Which was crazy because when KD got back, they still, not saying they're a favorite, but could have won.
Oh, absolutely. Any
They
team
had
with
the hottest streak in the NBA. it's just wild that a contender just vanished like that. And yeah, I mean, the domino effect of that being KD to Phoenix is just absolutely nuts, because the package that they got for Kyrie from the Mavs, including Dinwiddie and Finney-Smith, it's my understanding that that trade was made because those guys were going to be complementary pieces to KD. Otherwise, they would have taken a more pick-based pack. And now KD is like, look, like this marriage has run its course. And then, you know, Phoenix making the move. And the article I read about that was that he was like, if you're not going to trade me to Phoenix, I don't want to go to any other team, and I'll play out the rest of this year, which then would have opened the bidding to other teams following this season. So the Suns kind of had an isolated window to get it done. And, you know, by the grace of God, they did. It's just an absolutely wild, you know, just not expected after the whole fallout from the summer. So, I mean, that was a lot of me talking. So let's hear some of your thoughts.
I mean, to your point, you know, the Nets really appeared to be a contender. You know, you go into a playoff series with a healthy Durant and a healthy Irving on the same team, you know, that's two of the all-time shot creators in the history of this league, and you have to guard both of them.
Yeah.
And, you know, just to see that disintegrate, you know, in essentially a week.
Yeah.
Is
I think it was
insane.
5 days after Kyrie's trade request.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
then, yeah.
You know, I read an article that kind of discussed, you know, Brooklyn had some assets in 2013. They make the ill-fated trade for Pearson Garnett and, you know, mortgage their future. And then, you know, they double down and, you know, get superstars. And, you know, you would have never thought you would compare those two trades, but really, you know, quite similarly, you know, this era for Brooklyn has also been an abject failure.
Yeah, no kidding.
And, you know, they've gotten a couple of picks, but they've really dug themselves quite a hole in terms of not having future assets. Now they do have a bunch of good players. You know, it could be like in 2019 or 2018 when they have a bunch of likable guys, and you know, they'll be a league pass favorite for sure. But just
right, people were saying, you know, so many comparisons to those Dinwiddie and D'Angelo teams. So it's fitting to see some of those with Dinwiddie being back, but you know, they've got a lot of young guys, interchangeably, you know, defensively, a lot of switching. They have kind of a logjam at the wings now with the twins and Finney-Smith. So in Utah, like, it'll just be interesting to see how it all shakes out, because I feel like
yeah, I mean
them all. You can't really play them all.
No, I mean you know, it's easier now, obviously, with it being
Joe Harris too.
positionless, but
Yeah,
you know, it's still, you know, just too many guys to all keep happy.
you're right.
So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. You know, I can say as a Knicks fan, I thought for sure when they signed Durant and Irving, they would have at least, you know, one run to the finals to show for. You know, you never know if you win a championship, but I thought for sure we would see that team in the finals. So,
Yeah,
you know, the whole thing has been shocking, to say the least.
Right. I mean, let's not forget they were pretty close against the Bucks with KD's foot on the line.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just sad to see, you know, when you have all that talent on a team for it to not work. But, you know, we really don't need to get into all the reasons why they weren't on the court together. But it's just sad, like, because I think whatever, it was 16 games, the three of them played together. Harden, I think, saw the light at the end of the tunnel before really the rest of him was like, get me out, because I don't want to be, you know, stranded on this ship that's going down. And then here we are. And yeah, I will just say, you know, as a Suns fan, I would greatly miss Bridges and Cam, even like Jay Crowder, terrible ending with the team, but he had one of those great moments with the alley-oop to Ayton in game 2 of the conference finals. Very likable guy, brought a winning culture to Phoenix. So, we'll just miss him and, wish the guys in Brooklyn the best. Definitely just, being in New York, very excited to see more of them live. So yeah, looking forward to going to some games and, just interesting to see what they'll be able to do with a lot more freedom offensively. I know Mikal just had 45 in, I think, his second or third game with the team. So it's kind of like a sky's the limit thing. They clearly, held Phoenix near and dear to their heart. So it's nice to see just that it's a mutual thing. Like they felt the love. And I'll just say one more thing about as excited as I am for KD to be on the team. It's just such a different feeling because I've said this to a couple of people off camera, but it's like the team as it was constructed a week ago was so close to winning a title, right? Like up 2-0 against the Bucks and they implode. Giannis does historic things. It is what it is. They lose to the Mavs the next year, but it's like they still have all these homegrown guys, which I feel like is so rare in this like super team era to make it all that way and win. I'm not just saying like, oh, like Giannis, being a guy who stayed in his drafted city is like super applaudable. Kudos to him. But it's like the whole hierarchy of that Phoenix team they were all on the worst team in the NBA pretty much. They clicked in the COVID bubble enough so to like recruit CP3 and Crowder. And then that team, I mean, I was still considered homegrown because you had 4 of the most like valuable pieces in Book, Ayton, Mikal, and Cam all being drafted by the organization and like just the core being so young. So it will just be a different feeling because now I think even with all the success they had in the bubble and then in that regular season, I think they were the 2 or 3 seed, won like 55 games, whatever. People still really weren't talking about them because, the inexperience, that yada, yada, yada. So now it's just like, they're, if not the favorite, one of the favorites. And they pushed all the chips in to go get, one of the best players ever. So that's a crazy thing. It's just like, it's not going to feel the same. Like, I don't know if you feel that way, but.
No, I agree. I think it's comparable in some respects to, the Thunder, after 2012, obviously, a lot of young homegrown guys and, they're right there. And then, everything just kind of falls apart. Obviously I think with CP3's age being what it is, you kind of had to push all the chips in now and go for it.
Which I think is a great move. Like, I'm very happy that, first of all, just the Sarver error is just, it's totally kicked. It's done as bad. And I'm not trying to at all undermine the terrible misogynist and racist things that he did. With that said, just I'm so happy to see not the shallow pockets in ownership because it's like how many teams, even really before I was, growing up, became a Suns fan in like 2007, they already had missed like 2 good runs prior to that with Amari getting hurt. They didn't re-sign Joe Johnson. Like all of these, they traded Marion because they didn't want to pay him. All of these revolving around someone who's just like, I don't want to pay the luxury tax. You get the new owner in. He immediately trades to take in one of the fattest contracts in the NBA. But even on top of all that, because any owner should realistically go get KD if he's on the table and wants to play for your team. I was really happy to see that they signed Terrence Ross from the buyout market because despite his salary being low, the tax implications on that were massive. So you see that, and that's like this dude is just like committed to winning. And it's
Yeah, and I mean,
hell yes, like it's not every as a Knicks fan, about
oh, I know. Yeah,
right.
yeah. And I mean, you know, maybe I'm not exactly correct on the stat. I believe he paid the most money ever to purchase a franchise. So,
That
you
is
know,
true. I will just say that I think with the infrequency of teams being on the market and just the way the economy is going, I feel like pretty much any team in a Phoenix is by no means a prime market, but it's a warm weather place. It's
yep,
close enough to like LA being a big market.
yep.
They already have stars book CP. I feel like the valuation was very high, but any other, like if a lot of teams go for sale, I wouldn't be surprised if it's broken the next NBA team that gets sold.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Um, yeah, and I mean, Ross looked great in his first game with you guys. Gives you another shot creator. And I think KD is the ultimate guy you can just plug into any system, and he's a seamless fit. So, this is certainly the window for you guys, and hopefully you get it done.
Yeah, amen. It's just crazy. Obviously, with KD, coming off the injury, I think his first game is supposed to be Friday or hosting OKC. So kind of, another full circle moment. But
Yeah,
I'm just so excited to see the potentials, and I know as seamless as KD is, it's going to be like a bit of a transition period, but I'm just like staying up at night thinking about the options because it's like if you have a CP3 and Ayton pick and roll, you can't leave Booker and Durant. You can't help off them. But you could run so many iterations of the pick and roll, like a Booker KD pick and roll, a KD Ayton pick and roll. It's just like it's wild.
exactly.
So I'm just
Exactly.
excited to see it actually happen. You know, it's just crazy to be like a Suns fan. Like things like this don't happen because say what you will about like the locations of where stars go, but this really is, unless I'm forgetting something, one of the biggest trades with a star who the team had all the leverage with, like we have you for contract under 3 more years, and you're like a top 5 player. These players don't get moved.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point with the player empowerment thing, 3 years now isn't what 3 years was, even 5 years ago. But, um, you know, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. To your point, generally those guys don't get moved, and he offered to continue to play out the year, and
Which is
it,
applaudable.
I don't know. As Brooklyn, I would have been tempted to roll with that, honestly, just because the guy's that good. But
Right. Yeah, it's tough because I don't know. You obviously don't want to lose Kyrie for nothing, but I almost feel like you take a shot, but who knows? Maybe he would have sat out. So, we'll never know. It's over. It's on to the next thing. Kind of winding down just for a few minutes, but wanted to just leave the floor to if you want to talk about the Josh Hart trade at all, because I would just say, good ad for you guys because Reddish was dead weight on the end of the bench.
yeah, I mean, definitely a good ad for us. Quintessential glue guy. Does all the little things that impact winning. I can say watching the few games he's played, there just seems to be kind of a calming presence that he has on our guys when the other team starts to make a run, and he helps us get a stop, and it's like, okay, was 11, now it's back up to 15, a couple plays later, and now it feels like we're safe again. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And I
you know,
think,
I can say watching this team all year, it's kind of been no lead feels safe with us.
yeah.
But knock on wood, that'll start to change. Um, when we got the trade, I looked at his 3-point shooting numbers, and you know they weren't great. I wouldn't even call them. He was below average, but you know, um, the 3 games he's had with us, he's 9 of 14 from three. Obviously, that's not sustainable, but the looks have mostly been uncontested corner threes. So, if he can knock them down at like a 36 or 37% rate, I think that's really all we need.
Right. That's a
Um,
win. And I'd say with the calming presence, I think that's no coincidence. Just the chemistry that him and JB have together.
Absolutely.
So that's like a tremendous add. I don't know if you saw the live reaction because I think Brunson was at Villanova getting his jersey retired
Yeah.
when someone like showed him and he was like, oh, like jumping around. Like that was such a cool moment. And it's like these guys have, real friendships and, adding a guy like that on the team is,
Yeah. And
is a
I,
major win. And, as much as New York was criticized for paying Brunson like that over the summer, it's looking to be a tremendous value. He's brought
yeah,
so much to the team. I
you can
thought he should
almost
have been an
call it a
all-star.
steal.
I thought he should have been an all-star over Randall. So, I mean,
I
it
would
is
agree.
what it is. But yeah, he's been great. So, I mean, the Knicks sitting sixth right now. We really only have like a minute left, but a couple quick hitters. Growing up, I remember the All-Star game being like the midpoint of the season. Now there's less than 25 games left. That doesn't seem right. I know they keep moving the season up, to, reduce back-to-backs and all that, but
Yeah, I don't think it was ever exactly the midpoint. I think it was more like closer to 50 games, but
right.
still like 50 versus 60 is a big gap. I mean, we're 3/4 of the way through the season.
Mm-hmm.
And to a degree, when you're that far in, it almost kind of seems like, why do it? Like, why not just finish it out?
Right.
I
It's just like,
understand giving the players a break. I think it's fine to send them on vacation for a week. I'm not a huge like watcher of the All-Star game. I tried. I watched the first quarter. I saw nothing but a layup drill, and I was like, all right, like
yeah.
this isn't competitive.
It
I
never is
think
super
when
competitive, but
I think
this
when
year,
we were kids, it was a little more competitive. Like guys would at least, play the second half with a little more energy and effort.
yeah,
Obviously, I think the tribute to Kobe in 2020, it was competitive for that year, but
yeah. There was
that
no
doesn't seem to have
defense. There was no defense. Shout out to Tatum. He did his thing. That was cool. Him and Jalen guarding each other. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but we will look to be more frequent and, great having you on. Hopefully, the audience will stick with us. So thanks. Thanks for coming on.